Okay, so we're back in for our weekly, well, 2 weekly sessions, and we've got a guest. We haven't had a guest for a while, have we, Steph?
No, it's exciting. We've got a really cool guest here.
Yeah, so Shelly's on with us today, and we're going to be talking a little bit about how she achieves such phenomenal within bodybuilding, but still being a mum, having a job, and basically achieving some sort of balance within the realms of, a really successful competitor, because you have recently this year made even more achievements, haven't you, Shelly?
Yes, a very big one.
Now,
I am, well, firstly, I won the Arnold Classic UK in fitness. Not only did I do that to get my IFBB Pro card, I did the pro show the next day, won the pro show, and is going to Olympia in 2022, which is next year, very soon.
Yeah.
Awesome work.
It must feel like surreal, but then because you've worked so hard for so many years, it's a funny one, isn't it? It feels weird, but then it's like, but I have worked for this.
Yes. I mean, I spoke to someone the other day. The first time I lifted a weight was 3 years ago.
Really?
3.5 years ago. Yeah, a lot of people assumed that I'd done it for a while, but I mean, obviously I have a background in sports, but as for lifting weights, the first time ever was 218, June the 22nd. I remember the day.
So maybe that sort of would lead on to, could you give us a bit of a background as to how that started and then where you've come from to where you are now, sort of in the last 3 years?
Yep. So I started in June, end of June in 218. And I then entered my first show. So it was in fitness modeling. And that was 3 months later. So that was, July, August, it was in September. And then from there, I wanted to see how it was. So I was pretty chilled with it. I was like, okay, let's see if I actually like it before I carry on. I actually loved it and decided to do a comp a week after. So then from there, I got invited to a British finals. So as you do, I was like, well, I have to go to the British finals. So went to the British, got my first pro card. And then from there, I wanted to go back and get a pro card in another federation, which I wanted to be a part of. Mm-hmm. So I went to their worlds and I got my second pro card, and that all happened in, was it 8 to 10 weeks? That was.
Wow.
Maybe 9 weeks. So that's what happened. Then I became a pro. And then, of course, then you have to do your pro debuts. Yeah. So I did my first pro debut in the May. So I did their British finals in October, did the pros in May, won the pros in that one. So I thought, okay, that's great. And then I decided to go on and do my second pro debut. And that's the federation I stayed with. And I won the pro overall. And I won it twice in a row. Then I moved on and decided I was going to do IFBB and stay here.
Yeah. So what federations have you competed with in the lead up to where you are now?
So I competed for UKUP and Pure Elite. So I got my 2 pro cards in there. So UKUP, I finished. I decided to then stay with Pure Elite completely. Then from there, I went on, and so I won their overall amateur, then I won their overall pro twice. And then I decided I'm going to move on to do IFBB, and that's where I am. I'm going to stay. So that's when I made a decision in March to do the Arnold Classic. Well, to start my journey with IFBB, see how far I go, but my ultimate dream has always been to reach Olympia. I just didn't know when. And I said to myself, if it takes years, it takes years.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people and it's taken them years to even get their pro card. So let alone win a pro show and let alone go to Olympia. I mean, there's a lot of steps going on. So I was like, okay, set them as short-term goals. So my first goal is to get my IFBB Pro card, as you do. that was my goal, and everything else I thought was a bonus. When I saw that the Arnolds, you could potentially, get all this other stuff, but I was like, whoever does that, wow. Even I was looking at like, that's a lot, but okay. You know what I mean? Someone does that, that's one. Wow. But and it happened to me, so I was like, okay.
This is cool.
Yeah, I managed to get, as I said, 3 dreams in one, really, because they're all singular dreams to me.
Yeah. I guess what you said there relates to Steph's journey as well, where coming from a background of something, so Steph's always done dance, and you said you've done sport.
Yeah.
Both successful in your first seasons, whereas I came from no sporting background at all, and I did 2 or 3 seasons before I even got a chance at placing. So it's quite a relevant point, to understand that if you have got a background in some sort of sport or discipline, that it can, I feel like bodybuilding, it can really lend itself, because bodybuilding is like an extension of other things, isn't it, sometimes?
Yes. So I what I would like to put out there, because some people just see people winning, and it could probably potentially get them down, thinking, I'm never going to be like them. But what I want to say is, you have to know someone's whole journey before you make an assumption. Yeah, that makes sense. We all have to, no matter how talented you are, no matter how much people can go on about genetics and other factors, you all have to start somewhere. And your starting point is different from someone else's. So you could look at me and think, oh yeah, she's just winning, and she's that lucky. No, I went through my times where I wasn't winning. I still had to figure out a sport just like everyone else. The only difference is, yes, I've been in sports which complements bodybuilding longer. That is all. That is. But I've had the same journey. If you go into my journey, you'll be like, whoa, why are you still here? Because I've come last. I was on a team that got booed at one point in cheerleading, because we're that bad. I mean, we're bad. I ain't gonna lie, we're bad. But I persevered.
It's a foundation, isn't it? And that's why I think bodybuilding is pretty cool, because you can either come from a background like your Steph, where your discipline, committing to a sport, can lend itself to bodybuilding. You then still have to put the work in, or you can have a background like me and you can still be successful. So it just gives people an idea as to, like you say, it's very, very individual. I'm sure you'll agree, Steph.
Yeah, 100%. I think as well, a lot of people who perhaps have come from different sporting backgrounds might not necessarily make the link initially that, I've come from this discipline, this is going to help me in that field. You end up kind of, I don't know about you, Shelley, but you stumble across bodybuilding because you just sort of, it kind of finds you in a way. And then because of the nature of who you are, maybe what you've done in the past, your focus to the sport that you did, your discipline to the, training, it just kind of naturally feels like the right thing to do. And then obviously you've had a really, really successful first few years right to this point. And you suddenly kind of, I guess, recognize, and at that point realize, okay, all of that work I've done in other fields and other sports and other disciplines has allowed me to be reasonably respondent to this and be good at a certain point, maybe further down the line than somebody else who's maybe just started. So 100%, like I hear where you're coming from, but people often criticize and think, oh, you've got so much so quickly, but it's not the case at all. Like you've done so much before that led you to who you are now. I mean, I started when I was 8 years old competing, so it's a lot of years. I think I'd love the listeners to know, and me as well, a bit about your sporting background, so like what you did before you found bodybuilding.
So actually from the age of I think 4, 5, 6, I started actually doing various different sports. My mom used to send me on these camps, activity camps. And I even did archery at one point, dry ski, sloping. It was all sorts of different sports, all athletics, javelin shot. I was really bad at those. I'm not very good at this. But, if everyone wants to know, everyone says, is there anything you're not good at? That, any type of ball games. So anyways, you had to try it to find out, right? So I did all that. Then I decided that after doing all those random activities that I wanted to try doing ice skating, ballet, gymnastics together. So I was doing all that. My mom was running around crazily. And then it got to a point where they were like, okay, you're excelling. Gymnastics seemed to excel more than the others, although I was doing quite well at ice skating and ballet, but for some reason I connected more with gymnastics very quickly. So I had to then decide which way I wanted to go. And I just said gymnastics. So that's what happened. And so I parked everything else and just focused on gymnastics. I did do everything else for fun. So athletics, I did do at, in primary school. I represented my borough and did, sports days and all that. But I had to choose gymnastics because it was that vigorous of a sport. You can't combine pretty much anything with it. And that was it. And that's the decision I made. So I did gymnastics all the way up until the age of 17. I then got to a point where I got to national level in team gym, and I got to a regional, national pivotal point in gymnastics, women's artistic. At that point, I decided that I'm not going to go to Olympics. It was just too hard, and I got to an age where you kind of had to be there already. Gymnastics is a very short lifespan. You have to be young. And at that time, I didn't understand why, but now I do. I mean, you need a lot of energy. I have a lot of energy now, but I mean, I look at the beam now and I'm like, did I actually balance on that? Like, am I nuts? You need a lot of energy. You need the time. You can't have a job with it. You can't be thinking, oh, I want to go to university with it, because the training is a lot and it's pretty challenging. So I decided to go into acrobatics. I was on a national prep squad. Not for very long. That was 6 months. And then I got shoulder injury and decided it really wasn't for me. Although it was fun, I just didn't want to do it competitively, because what happened is, because I came from my gymnastic background, they decided they wanted to put me on a national prep squad. And I was like, oh, here we go again. This is another, the road I decided I didn't want to do at that time. And I wanted to go to university. I want to do my studies as well. So, and socialize, because I didn't socialize that much. Not saying I regretted it, because I did make up for it at university. Not gonna lie, quite a bit. Socialized for all the years I missed. So, and I'm happy that I did what I did. But at that time, when you're 17 going on 18, you want to socialize. You want to see, if you can find someone to be with, I guess, at that time. So, or explore at least. So I decided, I wanted to do something, but not so strenuous and not that something that took up all my time. So I then went to university. My university didn't have a gymnastics squad. So I was like, oh, it's kind of like Bring It On, isn't it? So this is the last resort. That whole thing, that was me. So I was like, okay, join cheerleading because I can tumble, go upside down. Let's give that a go. And I didn't even know cheerleading was in this country. So that was an eye-opener. And it was a brand new sport to my university. So they actually had no funding or anything like that. They hadn't had a team before, but the first step was to obviously start the squad and then see how it goes. So I joined a brand new squad and we didn't have a clue what we were doing at all. So they told us, so they told us, right, so the first point of call is to cheerlead for the basketball team. So, oh, we have a basketball team. Okay. So we cheered for the basketball team. I mean, because we had no clue what we were doing, we were trying to put people in the air, didn't know how to, struggling. And there's me like, okay, let me do a backflip. And then they were like, boo. And I'll do more backflips. And they'll be like, oh, boo. So I was like, okay. But we still got booed because we're that bad. So after that, we decided to get in professionals. And that was our turning point, actually. And that was my turning point. So the professionals came and they told us how we should really do cheerleading, how it runs, that is actually quite big in the UK, and that you have potential to go to like world championships and, you know, compete in different parts of the world. So I was literally like, wow. I was like, okay, I'm going to stick with this. I find it quite fun, actually, and, you know, learning something new, and I can do gymnastics too. So I was like, hey, that's great. So they actually came up to me after that and said, oh, would you mind joining a private cheerleading squad? And I went, there's others. And I was like, they were like, yes, you have to just do it for university. I said, okay, but can I still do it for my university? It meant something to me, even though, you know, it was a brand new squad. And as far as they're concerned, my level was too high for them. And I said, well, no, I still want to cheer for them. So if I could do both, why not? So that's what happened. So I ended up joining a cheerleading established squad that was potentially going to Worlds, and cheering for my university. And what was so special about that is we went from being booed to, when I was leaving my final year, which was 4 years later, we came first. So, you know, we went from literally being last to, okay, you know, semi in the middle to actually winning one major British championships in cheerleading. For, you know, they used to divide university up from the All-Stars. So we won that whole division. Yeah. So that was pretty amazing.
Like almost bodybuilding journeys, doesn't it, as well? Like how if you put the grit in and the perseverance, you can achieve so many big things.
Yeah, exactly. Just don't give up. That's what I'm saying.
Basically, yeah. So did that lead you into bodybuilding, or did you have a bit of time in between?
So after that, I obviously graduated from university. I then had my daughter. I was still doing cheerleading. I had to stop. I couldn't go to Worlds that year because I found out I was pregnant, as you do. So I actually then had my daughter, and once the doctor gave me the all clear, I decided to join back to another all-star world team. So I tried out. She was 8 weeks.
Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah, she was 8 weeks, and I made the squads. But the coach was happy with the fact that I was a mother because she just had her son. So it was quite cute. And, you know, they made it work for me to, you know, be able to train and to look after her. So I actually ended up going to Worlds 2 years later and representing the UK, which was a dream come true. And as a mother. So, yeah. And I was able to show others as well. Again, you can, you know, still have a baby and be on the Worlds team, which I never thought would be possible. I thought my dreams was actually shattered at that point, that I would never go to Worlds, but, you know, my daughter was a blessing. So,
yeah,
I guess that's what you know, that's just it. So I did that.
I think when I first spoke to you, you said not many people actually realise I'm a mum because of all your achievements.
Yes.
Yeah. So how old is your daughter now?
She's 8.
Oh, cute.
Yes.
So
yeah.
Do you find that bodybuilding can lend itself quite well to be able to get a regime that works for being a mum, working and also competing to such a high level? Have you found that you've just found what works for you, or is there certain things that people could sort of listen to and go, oh, that, you know, it is achievable?
Yes, I mean, it is achievable. You just have to be organized. I mean, really organized. So I have to write down everything and make sure it's, you know, between me and her, because she's also a gymnast herself. She does kung fu, she does stage, you know what I mean? So it's not just me. She's got her own budding career in sports. As well as academics. So it's just trying to organize the two and make sure it's balanced. Seeing what support you have out there, because you never know unless you ask or find out. You know, some people just make an assumption and be like, well, I can't do that. And I'm like, well, have you tried to do it? They're like, well, no, because I know I can't. Or they'll be like, oh, I don't have the support team. I'm like, have you even asked people? No, because I just know they won't do it. I'm like, okay, have you, you know, all you can do is ask, and, you know, all the responses may be is yes or no. If it's a no, you move on. And I've always had that motto. There's always options out there. That's how I grew up, actually. If I ever got like an F on an exam, which I did in physics one time, my mum was like, oh, okay, well, did you just write your name? I was like, maybe. And then she was like, well, there's options, you know, try another subject. But you know what I mean? I was never felt like, oh, I was a failure, because I was always taught there's options out of it. And there is. You know, let's say you don't win a competition. What are the options? And I don't think people think about this. They think, oh, it's the end of the world. I didn't win. I can't, you know what I mean? I'm on from it. Like, well, no, you can move on. You just need to figure out what went wrong, or if anything did go wrong, because as far as I'm concerned, all you can do is try your best and improve. As long as you've done that, what more can you do? You know?
Yeah.
So I just want to put it out there that you should think about what's around you and how you can utilize that in order to get to your goal is
I think that's such a good message. Like, I think that's massive, because it's like in every situation or whatever outcome, there's opportunity, isn't there? And it's like, what else can you get from the experience? Regardless if it's positive or negative, what else is there? Like, I talk to my clients and just people about this all the time, but going into an experience with almost like an open set of eyes, like, what's the good things around this environment? What other opportunities can you seek? What people can you speak to? And you'll always learn something. And you might find that there's competitions, like you've just said there, there's such a humongous cheerleading like whole industry in the UK and abroad. Like, I bet a lot of people didn't even know about that. Like, I bet a lot of people don't even know that there's other things that they can do as well. But I think it's a hugely important message to look for the opportunity. What do you think about that, Sarah?
Yeah, I agree. Also, a bit about what you said there in regards to, sometimes we've mentioned before on previous pods that in off seasons, when you maybe need a bit of recovery, if you've done quite a hard prep, or you want like additional activities. So as we know, in an off season, expenditure a lot of the time goes down compared to a prep. But I still think that you want to maintain a certain level of fitness, and you know, alternative activities, like you were saying about doing different stuff. I think people can become quite close-minded by bodybuilding. If you don't just solely that, you're not a real bodybuilder. But Steph and I try and sort of get across that you can do some fun things in your life as well.
You can make it fun. It's not all I try to tell that message as well. It's not all doom and gloom and you eating chicken all day. I'm just like, no. You know, you can enjoy it. You can enjoy your food too. You can enjoy all processes, you know, not just the stage time. You know, I also enjoy getting the softer look. I'll utilize that and do a photo. Whereas, and then it's also the in-between ones, and I don't find all stages quite fascinating. So I might just end up doing more ballet, you know, in that stage. Or, you know, they say, off season is you just cutting everything basically. And I want to put across, off season is so important. That's when you build, that's when you improve. And I always say to everyone, I'm always in a prep. They always say, oh, when is your prep? I'm like, well, I'm prepping from the day I step off that stage.
Yeah.
You might not see it physically because I've gone softer, quote unquote, but I am prepping all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's like when people sort of throw it out there that maybe don't understand it as well as we do, and they say, you know, are you not allowed time off? And it's like, it's not that I'm not allowed. It's you know, actually I enjoy this lifestyle, funnily enough.
It's my choice.
Yeah. And even when, I don't know about you, Shelly, with nutrition, but when at the moment I'm having sort of an intuitive stage where I'm eating in a calorie surplus, because I know by now sort of what I can eyeball things, as me and Steph always talk about, but I'm still training with the intensity that I always would. I'm still training the same amount. I'm still getting my protein, my carbs and my fat, but I'm just having a bit of time away from weighing every part while I'm in my off-season phase and I've got some personal stuff going on. So, you know, and I don't know how you approach your off-season. It'd be quite interesting to hear. But I think some people get so honed in on it having to be rigid every single moment, every single day, it can be quite debilitating.
Yes. Again, it's one of those things where you have to make it a lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, I do bodybuilding and then this is my life. You have to somehow merge the two together so that you're not thinking so much. To be fair, I don't even think about the food I'm eating until someone points it out to me and be like, oh, you're going to eat that mince all day. And I'm like, to be fair, I'm enjoying it. So why does it bother you?
Yeah.
What I'm doing, because I'm living my life and I'm happy. And also you can enjoy different foods. It's just a different way of doing it in order to, reach whatever goal that you may have. So with me, if I have a goal, because I'm very goal orientated, I have to have a goal, so I'll go nuts and I'm, I can't stay still. So, and I know that. So it's getting to know yourself as well. Trying to make it work for you. So if someone else is doing something, so let's say I do something, it's not necessarily going to work for you. And that's what a lot of, I think, misconceptions come across, where it's like, okay, so she managed to do that with this, so I should do that. And I'm like, well, no, because that might not, go with your body or go with what your goal is. So that's another message I would like to put across is that.
Yeah, I mean, do you work with a coach yourself?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. And Steph and I, again, always try and touch on this, that to be a successful competitor, I do solely believe that having a coach is a key part.
Yes.
I can't imagine trying to do this without one, to be honest, or at least someone, that, say your partner's a coach as well and you can work together. You need some sort of input.
Yeah. I mean, that's a question I got asked because I coach. So they're like, so if you coach, why do you need a coach? Now, when I'm on a prep, I can deal with my clients or my gymnasts, but it's very hard because I feel like everybody will go through this. You sort of get a bit clouded on your own self and, what you look like. So you need another pair of eyes. So as you said, whether it is a partner who, he's an industry with you, or a coach, coaches do need coaches because they're not always going to look at themselves and be like, yeah, I look like, and have a true accurate perception, because we don't. We always looking at something different. I might be looking at my delts thinking they need to be bigger, but whereas the coach is looking at the whole thing, like, okay, you're doing all right. And I'm like, no, you know what I mean? So you need that in order to succeed. You need at least another pair of eyes.
I think as well, you can get kind of complacent a little bit, I think, if you're just with yourself the whole time, and you don't necessarily maybe bring out as much potential as I think you may get from a coach who really intrinsically wants to see you progress and do well, and they'll challenge you as well at points that you won't challenge yourself as much. And I think it's massively important. Like I have my partner who does a lot of looking in at me. I've even been because up until sort of this point, I've been pretty much coaching myself, but then with Andrew, who is very, very rigorous with me when it comes to what I need. But I've even considered myself like having an external coach come in for my next prep for just a fresh set of eyes and a fresh, just new motivation. I think it's so important. Yeah.
And I'll agree with that whole challenging you, because we all get to a point where we're like, oh, okay, 20 of that is, that's great, doing it. That's what it says. But then it's like they will be like, oh, you're doing that easy, then maybe you should add in this, or maybe you should add in that. And even as a coach, I even step back myself and think, oh, because my gymnasts will be like, wow, you really challenged me there. And then I think to myself, oh, okay, so I'm doing a program and it gets easy for me. I'm like, oh, I should tell my coach this. You know what I mean? And as a coach, you learn from it and become a better coach to yourself. So coaches that have coaches that have coaches that have coaches, it's fine. Because everyone thinks, oh,
you're a
coach, you should stop and just coach yourself.
Shelley, a question I've got that has just sort of sprung to mind. So in regards to achieving the work-life balance with being a competitor, would you say in your scenario that having a coach actually really lends itself to achieving that balance, because your coach can go, right, this is your training plan, this is your nutrition, and you're able to then just box that off and continue with the rest of the stuff that you have going on in your life as well as competing?
Yes, this is very important, actually, especially when it gets towards competition time, and you have a lot to juggle. It just takes away that thinking process, you know. As it is, you already think differently when it comes to yourself than other people. So it just removes that. In fact, it makes work easier. It makes me, you know, being a mom easier. And it just makes my organization easier, because I know that I just need to follow this. That's all I need to do. Just follow it and trust the process. And then, you know what I mean? I can just think about other things.
She's dropped the process slogan.
It's happened. It's there.
That because we're like, you know, we don't want to say it, but trust the process.
Yeah, exactly. You need to trust the process. Yeah.
That really, like, a really, really cringy statement, but it's just so true. That's the thing.
Yeah. So when you're, Shelley, when you're sort of traveling around and competing in different places and as in different locations, how do you sort of manage that with having a little one? Do you have people that help with babysitting and stuff, or do you take her with you?
So I have people who help. My mom plays a big role in it. But her motto is, if we're happy, she's happy. So she's happy to do that. And plus, she said she's done it all her life. I spoke to her about it. I said, how do you feel about this? I do that because, you know, I don't want to make her do something she doesn't want to do. I always believe that you should do what you would like to do, obviously, without harming. So I always asked her, because if not, then I know that if it makes her unhappy, I can probably seek some other options, if that makes sense. But no, she's happy to do it. And she's done it since I was 8. And she said that's all she knows, actually. So I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And now she has the 2 of us. And she said it just makes her happy knowing that we're both following our dreams or what we want to do or what we want to achieve. So I have her, but I do also have my friends. They play a big role too. They've come to every competition. They've put up with me saying, oh, you know, I can't go out. They'll be like, oh, okay, well, we'll find a way for you to go out. So one time we played crazy golf, you know, I was 2 days out from a comp. It's my friend's birthday. You know, we played crazy golf. They didn't eat any, you know what I mean? We had water, and they went to a place that had chicken breast, steak, you know, so I was able to actually eat out, have fun with them, and then go, and we all went to my competition. And those are the sort of people you kind of need around you. You know, and I always say, if you don't have people like that around you, or your friends are not like that, willing to adapt, then you need to find new friends. You know, family can't change, but, you know, you can distance yourself. So
and that's the thing, like Steph said, got her sort of pizza friends, and then she's got her bodybuilding community. Exactly.
And it's like, you really find out who your friends are when you're doing anything competitive like this, which demands so much of your time. Like you really do, you know, the people that will stick by you and will help, you know, be a part of it, or maybe even, like you say there, understand what you're doing. So fit some plans around that. I think that's fantastic. And I think it's quite rare. I think you hear a lot, particularly females in the industry. Me and Sarah, we've spoken about this before, but there's a lot of people tend to struggle with their friends when they start to do bodybuilding, and it throws up a lot of awkward conversations with people. You know, people asking them why they're doing, you know, sacrificing so much of themselves to do the sport, why they're eating certain things, and really just pushing that kind of that friendship to a different level. And I think it can be quite damaging for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think so too. It's just, again, it's one of those things where you have to think, is it that important for me to do? And if so, then you go and do it. But by all means, if your friends are not along with you, you can make new friends, you know, that hopefully will support you. And I think that could be a frightening, scenario for quite a few. But at the same time, when you're doing something, let's say bodybuilding, it is for you. So you just need to think to yourself, does this make me happy? Why am I doing this? And if the why and you making happy is far greater, then by all means go for it. And you just never know what's around the corner. You don't know what friends you might meet, or even, people, I call them associates as well, who might come into your life. So yeah, I'll just say you have to make a step. If you want to do something, make that step and go for it. Even, even if it's frightening, remove the fright, because what is fright at the end of the day is something that we made up.
Yeah, I agree with fear. The only thing that, the worst thing that's going to happen, I always say, is I'm going to die. And I know it sounds quite drastic, but what is the worst that can happen, And like you say there with friendships, I think it's really hard when you first get into a disciplined sport. For me, because I didn't have that background, all of my friends were, school friends or drinking friends. So they were literally like, what even is this? Like, what is bodybuilding? So I found it quite hard at first because I felt an element of guilt because they didn't understand it, and I then wasn't getting the same from the friendships that I was previously, and also I didn't want to go out drinking and getting smashed and all that sort of stuff anymore. You mentioned with the university period where you explore and you find yourself, it gets a bit boring,
No, it did.
It's like, how long do you basically exist for the weekends before it becomes that, like, what am I actually doing with my life?
Yeah, that's what happened actually with the bodybuilding. I remember I turned 30 and I was like, I remember coming out, I went out, got a bit woo, and then I just remember turning to my best friend and I said, something needs to be popping off this year. Never thought this would be, but I just remember saying that. She was like, what do you want to pop off? I said, I don't know, something. And there you go.
I mean, everyone has periods in their life where you are drinking more and everything else, and especially like I say, in the first transition into bodybuilding, like everyone would just be, every time you go out, if you're not drinking, everyone's going, are you okay? Are you sure you don't want to drink? Like, if I wanted a drink, I would have one. And
exactly.
It does strain things, and because you're constantly having to sort of excuse that you don't really fancy a drink. Like, it's not because there's anything wrong with it. It's just, we are on an endeavour to aesthetically change our bodies, and something like alcohol, it doesn't lend itself to a prep in particular, and we're choosing to have food for our calories rather than alcohol most of the time in that period. But then in off season, it might be that you do enjoy some alcohol. It's very individual to the person and what you want to do in each phase, and it doesn't just fit into a prep, really, does it? A lot of stuff have to go by the wayside, but I enjoy that element of discipline. I don't know about you two.
I really enjoy discipline. I mean, if I don't have discipline, I will go off the rails. So I know myself.
I think like that knowing yourself is so huge, and it's something like, it's quite refreshing, like hearing you speak about that, Shell, because like I think a lot of people come into bodybuilding seeking external validation, or like they'll come into they'll be using it as potentially something to focus on to escape from some other problem going on. And bodybuilding, out of everything I'm from, even speaking with you, Sarah, over the months that we've been doing these podcasts, you have to really know why you want to do this, because it's not a walk in the park, is it? It's like, it's an extreme thing you're doing, and to really take up the amount of time that you do with it and change your food habits and change, obviously, everything is scheduled around your training. You've got a family, you've got to think about your family and how you commit with that as well. It's not easy, so you really need to like it and enjoy it. Otherwise it could be really damaging. And I think I've seen that a lot with some of my clients, who have been through the journey, have struggled with, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? Because they've never had that internal conversation with themselves and knowing why and who they are and what this is all about for them.
Yes, yeah, because I'm coming to it for some sort of validation that they don't even know. And I'm like, all right, well, you know what I mean? And that's the thing, because a lot of this is mindset too. So if your mind's not there, I always tell a lot of my clients this: if your mind's not there and you're humming and hawing and being like, well, you know, then you shouldn't do it. You know, especially when it comes to, let's say, a competition. If they're like, well, I want to do this comp, but I'm like, no, stop right there. You don't want to do that comp. But there's another one, you know what I mean? That's, again, the options thing. So I'm not saying I'm not killing their dream off completely. I'm just saying it doesn't seem like it's right for you right now. And the stage will always be there as an example. So maybe try next year. That's all. And you probably feel better then, you know. And then next, you know, you have someone saying, yeah, I'm ready. That's what you want, you know. And once your mind's there,
is that whole thing of,
everything becomes easy.
Yeah, like if someone says, I want to compete, and then you start looking at it, you know, what's involved. And if someone's going, oh, well, do I have to do that bit? It's like, you're not there. Like, don't try and put yourself into this, you know, extreme sport for the sake of maybe, like you say, external verification, or whether it's they've seen it on Instagram and it looks really cool, or you know, all the reasons that people come up with. It's like, you need to, okay, what do I need to do? Okay, I'll do it. This is how it's going to work. This is the date of my competition. Let's crack on. You know, and as a coach as well, it's very difficult when someone's already put in excuses, I guess is probably the best word, at the start of the journey, let alone when you're in a deficit for up to 6 months or however it's going to be. You know, if there's already things in the way at the start, it's trying to assess what you're trying to achieve and whether that is the right time, like you say.
And you don't want to also have, like, as you said, someone could come to you know what I mean, they're like 2 weeks out from a comp, and it's like, I wish you said that from before. So that's why if I even sense any, you know, doubt, I'm literally like, we need to talk about this, because, you know, you don't want to get to that point, because it can be damaging for them afterwards, depending on, you know, where they're at. I also encourage people to talk about it, you know, make sure every step of the way, you know why you're doing it. So
would you, as a coach, I think, Steph, you do a similar thing when someone comes to you and says, right, I want to do a prep, in sort of relation to today's topic of achieving that balance. Steph has spoken before about saying to someone, you know, have you got any big things coming up? So if in 2 months you've got a massive 2-week holiday where it's all inclusive, it's your best friend's wedding, you don't want to track, you can't train, okay, so why don't we start the prep after that? Do you sort of look at things like that if people have got big life experiences coming up and sort of working around that?
Yes, I do look at all of that. I also encourage them to tell me as well if anything does come up, or, you know, tell me as much as they can in terms of their schedule if they want to do a prep. And especially if the goal, you know, let's say it's a huge goal. So I'll be like, okay, fine, we need to, you know what I mean? We need to map it out. Not saying you can't do any of these things, but it's good if we know so we can plan ahead. If that makes sense. I went on holiday, you know, and prepped. I've done it several times actually. And that's simply because I spoke to my coach, or, you know, the people around me, and we managed to plan ahead, and I managed to enjoy myself, come back and, you know, still do my comp, still do well. So it can be done.
Yeah, I definitely, that's a really good point, because I definitely think that if so like that example I said where I've got a 2-week holiday, it's my best friend's wedding, and I don't want to track and I don't want to train, it's a very different attitude. I've been on holiday 2 weeks out before, but I took all my food, there was a gym there, and absolutely fine. So it's what that person's attitude is towards those big things coming up, and like you say, being transparent with your coach. And Steph, I know this is something you work on with your clients, isn't it?
Yeah, all the time. It's, you know, do you foresee any challenges that are going to stop you achieving your goal, and what are they going to be throughout that process? And they might be great challenges, and they might be, you know, challenges they're not aware of yet, which is part of the initial conversation as well. Is you have to be ready for any outcome because anything can happen during a prep. You know, we had COVID last year.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. No one saw that coming.
I know, exactly. You know, it's like things happen, and sometimes, like a big piece of it, mindset wise, I do with my guys is talking about if at any point during this we have a situation that was out with our control, we be rational and pragmatic about it, and we don't freak out. We just, you know, we sit down and really think about that. So it's almost going in knowing that you've got a plan of attack, knowing the goal, knowing where you need to get to, but also being prepared and resilient for anything that might come in from the wings. Do you know what I mean? And just getting yourself kind of prepared for those outcomes as well. So it's been an amazing, I think, couple of years for coaches to really see and quickly adapt to scenarios that, well, it's been such a bonkers state of affairs, but to see actually can see what can be done though. And what people can still achieve is just amazing.
I mean, who would have guessed that you could still go to competition doing, doing hardly no weight training at home and still manage to do well? I never would have thought that would be possible, actually.
Exactly.
So, you know, positives out of this.
100%. Yeah.
So, Shelley, you said about next is going to be Olympia. So, if you've got sort of plans in place, we'd love to hear about, you know, when your prep will begin in regards to obviously getting stage lean and what's next for you before we wrap up today.
Okay, so right now I'm in that phase where I'm just going to try and build a bit more muscle mass.
Hey,
yes.
To be fair, I don't have to per se build too much more. I just want to become a little bit more denser, so more muscle maturity and a lot more conditioning. We can always condition. You can't. Oops, sorry. Can you see me? Yeah. You can't stop conditioning. You know, you can always do something for that. So I'm in that phase. And then because my name hasn't really gone out there, I agreed with my coach that we will do a couple of international shows before I hit Olympia.
Cool.
So I am looking at Chicago Pro as my first. So that's end of July.
Nice.
So I have quite a bit of time. My dream, I have to say, was to do the US Arnold's, and I could have actually applied to that. But I decided to turn that one down and do it next year, simply because I did all this very quickly and I had to stop and think, you know, at first I was like, oh, that's exciting. Oh my gosh, I should do that. And I thought, no, wait, I won't be able to build any more muscle. I'm going to look the same. I'm going to have to rush this routine. I'll be on prep for it now, by the way.
Yeah.
I was like, no. So I decided I'm going to slow my roll. That's another thing, you know, don't always get too excited and think, oh, I've got to do this now. No, it's going to be there next year, the year after, and the year after that.
Huge lesson there. Massive.
Yes. Yeah. So I turned down, potentially doing the US Arnold's. And I'm happy with that. It actually felt good because I know my end goal is to do really well in Olympia.
Yeah.
I want to do well in both, but Olympia is the pinnacle. So I will sacrifice, even if let's say, you know, after having a discussion with my coach and she said, look, you just need to do Olympia this year because you won't be ready for these ones, I'll be like, okay, fine. I won't compete for the whole year till I reach there. But she said, no, let's do like a couple of competitions, and I think you should do the UK Arnold's again. So I said, oh, that's 4 competitions. So but they're going to be, so what I'm doing is I'm planning it so that I am going to be in a prep where I'm, you know, shredding. So I'll have one phase for bulking and then one phase for shredding, and I'll stay in that. So I don't want to go from bulk, shred. You know, it's not good to do that either. So I planned it quite meticulously so that I have every single comp at the end of the year, because the Olympia is December. So if anyone didn't know that, they've moved it back to Las Vegas as well. So I will do Chicago Pro, then I'll do a European comp. I'm not sure which one yet. The lists are still being made. So whether it'll be August or whether that will be October, I haven't decided. but I'll definitely be doing the Arnold's UK and then Olympia. So whether I do anything else in between, who knows?
See what happens.
I'll see what happens. Yeah, but you'll see me at the end of the year next year.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So, and if people wanted to follow your journey on Instagram, what's your Instagram handle so people can look you up and give you a follow?
Yep. So my Instagram handle is Shelly Fit with a _ IFBB Pro.
Nice.
So that's my Instagram handle.
Get the IFBB Pro in there. You've earned it, girl.
Absolutely. I can't wait to follow your journey, Shelley. I'm excited about it. Like, I think you've got an insane mindset. It's been really nice hearing just how you think about things. I think people will take a lot away from that today. I'd love to get you back on again and do some more stuff around that, sort of taking it from where you started, and now you're in the you're going into the pro rank. Well, you are in the pro ranks, and how you change that mindset is. I think that's a really interesting topic. But you've given us snippets today and some really key messages. I think that a lot of people will get a lot from today. So thanks for that.
You're welcome. Yes, I would love to, come back on, and then, we can discuss whatever aspects you want to discuss. I'm happy to share. I'm happy to share as long as it helps someone, I always say be the best version of themselves and, reach their goals. Because you just feel so happy, once you reach something that you've always wanted to do. And I really strongly want to send that message across that it's not impossible to do that.
So inspirational people to hear, and like we said, with achieving that balance of being a mum, being a successful competitor, holding down a job, and all the other things that you've achieved, people can listen to this and go, maybe maybe that's something that I can look to do, or even a fraction of what you do. It could lead them into a journey of achieving really good things, and that's a really nice, like you say, even if one person listens, it's a really nice thing to do.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for your time. We really do appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Well, thank you for having me.
And well, there will be a part 2. Maybe it'll be when Shelley's in prep and we can see the mindset change.
Yes. Let's do that.
That'd be pretty cool, actually.
You'll be like, has she changed?
The focus.
I'm always thinking to myself, what's the worst can happen? Comes off, eat a donut. 20, it's all right.
We can work around it, babe.
Yeah, go back to the drawing board. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, and Steph, as always, a pleasure.
Always love doing these every week. So thanks so much, Shelley. It's been a really nice one today, and we'll look forward to having you again on in the future. And Sarah, where can people find you?
Yeah.
So on the gram, as always, Sarah Parker _BB, bodybuilder coming through. And
Steph _figure pro. You can go find me on there.
Woo.
As always, any topics, and also like Shelley said there, she's up for topics. So if there's anything people want to speak to Shelley about, let us know and we will set it up.
100%.
Amazing.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Later.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye.